What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Don't Believe the Hype. My name is Jay Sean. I'm an artist, creative, entrepreneur. And on this episode, I want to talk about if there is a God who is supposed to be good, why does bad things happen? So this is a conversation that I had with an individual a couple weeks ago about God and his way of doing things. If God is supposed to be good, why is there so much bad in the world? And my initial response was, well, everyone has free will. You get to choose whether you want to do good things in your life or you want to do bad things in your life. And he mentioned, what about the kid? What about the baby in a third world country who gets bombed? Like, God couldn't prevent that. And at first, I was taken back by that comment. Like, well, I don't know. I don't know everything. But then I had this thought come to my mind. And I said, what if somebody ran into my home to murder my family? I have a gun in my safe. I can protect my family, but I cowered back and the person gets away with murdering my family. Is that God's fault or is that my fault? And he kind of thought about it. And I was like, at the end of the day, we all have a responsibility, especially if you're called into leadership, if you're a politician, if you're some kind of leader of your nation, of your country. You have a responsibility. Your duty is to your people. You are supposed to protect your people. So if you do something that initiates a war, is that God's fault? I mean, it's easy to point the blame on God. Oh, God, this happened. Oh, you're a bad person. But when do we ever take ownership of our own crap? When do we stand up and man up or woman up and we start to take responsibility in our lives for the things that we do? Now, if I live my life and if I'm a leader in my home and I don't believe in God, I don't read the Bible, I don't go to church, I don't affiliate with anybody who believes in God and does all that other stuff, and bad things start to happen in my life because of my own decisions, is that God's fault for not coming to protect me? Hey, God, if you're supposed to be good, why did you allow this to happen? In another sense, God can say, well, why did you allow it to happen? I gave you free will to choose. You see, we're influenced by God, but he's not interested in having robots. God is interested in relationship. See, you have to wake up and choose to want God. He's there. It's not like you have to go and run 10 miles to reach God. No, he's there. All you have to do is acknowledge him. But we don't do that. We live our lives without God, and then things happen, and then we blame God for it. You eat bad your whole life, and then you die from a disease, and you blame God for not saving you. You make poor financial decisions, and you find yourself in a rut, and you blame God for not coming through. No, God gives us wisdom. God gives us counsel, people in our lives to help us, to guide us, to lead us. See, we have to make the choice. We're not babies. Some of us are babies, but we're not babies. We're grown men and women, grown adults who blame God for everything bad that takes place in our lives, and we take no responsibility for any of the bad things in our lives. Hey, God, this person's homeless. Why don't you help them? Why don't you? Why don't you give them $5 so they can go eat? Why don't you give them the jacket off of your back so they can be warm when it's cold? give them some water when it's freaking hot in the summer. You get what I'm saying? Like, we don't like to take responsibility. We like to blame other people. We like to blame God. And then we come up with this conclusion, well, God's not real. The Bible's fake. The Bible's a bunch of crap. Nah, dude, you just like to blame people. You don't like to take responsibility for your own crap. And so after having this conversation, it was a change in perspective for the other person. He said, I never seen it that way. Like, we all have a responsibility. We have a duty. If you're called into leadership, your responsibility is to your people. Now, if you choose to not want God, that's no one's fault. That's your decision. You're free to choose whatever you want to do. You're free to choose that. And you're free to choose whatever you want to do, whatever you want to believe, whoever you want to believe in. But when stuff starts to happen in your life, don't go and blame God. It's not God's fault. You see, my Bible tells me that God gives us the desire and the power to do what pleases Him. My Bible tells me that God imparts His own spirit inside of me. So I have everything I need to live a godly life. My Bible also tells me that God is interested in me, in every detail of my life. He's fully invested, fully present. He's not an absent father. He's not an absent God. He's not silent. You may not hear His voice audibly, but I mean, if you're like me, I'm a visual person. There's a lot of ways that God can speak to people, but for me particularly, I get visions, I get dreams, I get ideas. I see faces. And when I act on those visions, those dreams, lets me know that that's God helping me out. It may be different for other people. I know one of my buddies, Justin, God speaks to him through songs and music, so through music and movies. Same here. Don't Believe the Hype, a show about misconceptions. Like, there was a song that I've been listening to called Misconceptions, and there was a specific part where they were talking about, they kept mentioning the word misconceptions. And I remember driving, and that word from that song, in the same exact way they said it, just kept going through my mind. And I'm like, Lord, why does this word keep playing through my mind? And it clicked like, wait, why don't I make a show about misconceptions? And we'll call it Don't Believe the Hype. Does that make sense to you? So, God is present. God is here. God is real. I mean, you can go outside and you can look at the world, look at the trees, go look at the ocean, look at animals, look at your neighbor, and just look how perfectly the world is. Like, how everything is set up in the world. It's, come on, you can look outside and you can tell that a genius man designed this. It's really like in 2023, and I'm going to be bold and say this, and you guys might not like it, but I'm going to say it anyways. In 2023, it is foolish as hell to think that there is not a God. It is very foolish. I mean, you can go and talk to believers, people who believe in God, and ask about their stories. And they'll tell you about things that God has done in their lives, things that you probably have never heard about before in your life. To say there is no God is foolish. And to say that you don't agree with how God does things is prideful. And I would like to know, if you were God, what would you do differently? Because a lot of us like to play God in our lives, but in all actuality, we are terrible gods. We would be terrible gods. We would be terrible, terrible, terrible gods. Terrible, terrible gods. Terrible. So I would like to know what you would do differently if you were God. So if God involved himself and came down and just started saving everyone and delivering everybody from their problems, how would you grow? How would you mature? How would you learn how to love people who are unlovable? How would you learn how to be a peacemaker in the midst of a chaotic world? See, we don't like growth. We don't like maturity. We like the fast and easy route. We like microwave things. We want a microwave life. We want to just pop something in life and get it out and go about and enjoy it. What is life without struggle? What is life without problems and issues? What is life without setbacks? Man, when you go through a setback, did something that was supposed to tear you down, and your response is to stand up even when you get knocked down. Man, how much courage that takes to do that. How much strength. How inspiring to look at stories of people who went through hell and who survived and came out of it on the other side on top. Came out better, stronger, faster, more wise, coming out and having more compassion. You see, a lot of the things that I go through in life, a lot of the bad and tough times that I've had, it developed compassion in me for people who have gone through that stuff. People who may not believe in what I believe in. I know so many people who don't believe in God, and guess what? I'm not mad at them. I have compassion for them. Because I was there once upon a time. And regardless of what you believe, we all go through life. Things happen to all of us. Things that we can't get around. If it wasn't for the things I went through, and a lot of the things I went through were because of my own fault, my own poor decisions. I own up to that. I take full responsibility for the things that I put myself through. And I have a family, so I have to be careful with what decisions I make, the things that I do, because it doesn't just affect me, it affects them and their future. I have a responsibility. So it's my duty first as a man to be connected to God, to my God, to know Jesus, to believe Jesus, to believe that he loves me, and to walk with him, to ask him for wisdom. That's not weakness. It takes humility to do that. Can't help but know that there's a lot of entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, and you know one of the most potent qualities that they have is humility. And it's something that we seem to lack. And a lot of us wonder why we struggle with relationships. We struggle with finances. We struggle with our health. Because we lack humility. And true humility, in my opinion, starts with God. Starts with believing in Jesus. Starts with you knowing that you can't do anything apart from God. You can, but I mean, how many successful people do you know who gain wealth and status at the expense of their soul, their family, or their health? They're not even alive today. No, I don't say that. I don't say that in a bad sense. But the reality is, when you humble yourself, you stand. Pride comes before a fall. So I'm going to leave that there. You can do whatever you want with it. God is real. You don't believe in God's method. You don't like the way God does things. Maybe you should check yourself first before you put any blame on God. I know I said, God, I don't like the way things are going with churches in the world. I don't like how people are being spoken to, how people are being treated, how people are being treated who don't believe like us, how people are being treated who are hurt, who are broken, who are lost. And you know what God told me? He said, okay, do something about it then. All right? Don't believe the hype. Peace.